Hey there, I'm the Mad Catster, and am I glad to see you here. Welcome to another edition of the Daily Docket, and today we're going to be talking about the McBrooms, because there's some disturbing things that I've seen in the last several days, and I just finally felt like the topic that I'm going to discuss needs to be addressed, so let's jump into it. Hey, you guys, thanks for joining me for this edition of the Daily Docket. Be sure to stick around to the end. I've got the story of Edith and Mary, who I've talked to you about before, and I am going to tell you, and Edith is drooling because she's all excited. She's purring away and she's drooling all over the place. I'm going to tell you their story, so stick around. But anyways, let's get into the McBrooms and their latest nonsense. The last several days, I've seen some things from the McBrooms which have kind of disturbed me. One was their child got knocked over by their dog, and he had a bloody, I don't know whether it was cut his inside of his lip or his gum, and it just appalled me at how the parents were more concerned about the camera and getting this horrific little scene on film. I mean, the kid wasn't badly hurt, but still, it just mortified me that these people have such little regard for common decency and decorum, that everything has to be part of this grand Ace Family circus. So what happened in essence was, and I'm going to show some clips here, the dog came up behind the son and sort of jumped up on him, just playing around, and the kid fell over and started crying, and Austin went over, picked the kid up, and of course the camera's rolling the whole time. It has to be rolling. And apparently he had a bloody lip. I don't know, because you never know with the McBrooms. There's so many things that they do that you just know are staged. And so I hate to be so cynical, but part of me was wondering if the blood that shows up in the following scenes wasn't some kind of a plant. I know that sounds horrible, but that's the kind of people that they are. So anyway, so Austin brings him to the kitchen. Of course, Catherine's running behind carrying the camera, and she gets in, and Austin's already standing in front of the kid, and so you can't see the kid. All you see is Austin's back, and when Austin moves, there's blood all over the kid's mouth. That's why I say the cynic in me says, was that real blood, or did they do that to blow it up a little more than what it really was? So anyways, let's, for the benefit of the doubt, say the kid really was hurt and the inside of his lip was bleeding, and Austin's like patting it away, but they're like zooming in to get a real, get a close up of that cut and that blood and the bloody tissues and things. And it just was like, it just grossed me out, frankly, to see the whole scene unfolding in front of me. And eventually the kid is all right. He stops crying. They give him some treat to eat. They're fooling around. I'm not going to show you like all of it. I'm just going to show you a couple of clips that I think are relevant, but they're like fooling around. They sit the three kids on the counter and they're asking them stupid questions, and the kids are raising their hand. And it's like, okay, so the kid's fine, right? Well, in the following scene, all of a sudden they've got their coats on, and Kathleen goes, "We're going to go to the emergency room, make sure he doesn't need stitches."
We're gonna go to the emergency room and just check out, just to be sure, just to be safe that he's good, in case we do need maybe some like stitches in there, like dissolvable stitches.
And it's like, stitches? The kid's fine. He's not even crying anymore. His mouth isn't bleeding. You've given him, he's eating treats. What are you talking about? You people are just so fake. It's like, give me a break. They just, everything has to be about this circus. And it just, maybe look again at, they use their children for views and clicks and money. Okay. And it reminded me of back when they were living in the foreclosed house. There was one particular time where they were filming, and it was like, our dog bit our baby, scary moment or something. And I'm going to show you a little clip here of that. But the kid is sitting there and Catherine's filming, and she goes to turn the kid's head, see where the dog allegedly bit the kid, but there's like no mark on the kid's face at all. So right away that told me this is all fake and it's staged, right? And Austin goes, "Oh no, don't show his face, because they're going to show," then they showed later some pretend wound on the kid's face that wasn't there. So it's like, it just it grosses me out that these people do this to their kids. Then there was another video that I was kind of going back to look at videos that sort of center around the children. And there was one video where Austin and Catherine are at like the pet store looking for a bed for the dog and stuff. And the phone apparently rings. I don't know. You go outside and Austin's got his concerned face on. And next thing you know, he puts the eldest daughter on speaker and she's crying and she's at school and she wants him to come pick her up. Now, there's like no indication that anything's happened to her or anything's wrong. So they go to the school and it turns out the kid just wanted to go home. She knew the parents were doing stuff and she wanted to get out of school and go with them. And of course, they're like, oh, want to go for ice cream? You know, it's like they're rewarding the kid for making a scene to get them to come pick her up early from school. It just drives me crazy. So it got me thinking, you know, the McBrooms, I put on my lawyer hat. It's not this hat. It's a special hat that I can't show you. But I put on my lawyer hat and I started thinking like, okay, so the McBrooms do this YouTube stuff. And of course, you know, they've that boxing crap, which I don't know if it's ever even going to come back. But for the most part, they do YouTube. That's their job. Well, the kids are in almost every video. So if they're working and the kids are on screen with them, then the kids are working too. They're doing the same thing. It's not like they run a store and they bring the kids to work and put the kids to work in the store underage, but it's basically the same thing because here the parents are doing their job and the kids are doing the job along with them. So I took a look at California's laws with regard to minors and working. And this is what I found. Okay, I'm going to put this up here. So California defines a minor as any person under the age of 18 who is required to attend school, but it also says and includes minors under age 6. So for the purposes of the labor code, naturally, all 3 of the McBroom children are minors, right? So then what California law says is in order for a work permit for children, it says permits to employ and work, all minors under 18 years of age employed in the state of California must have a permit to work. So McBrooms have basically got their children working and helping them earn a living because everybody knows the kids get the clicks. So the kids are doing just as much as the parents in this job, but they don't have a permit to work. I'm sure they're not putting aside a cut for the kids. We already know they blow all their money basically. And it just makes you think these poor kids are like being used day in and day out to help the parents make money. And yet the kids are basically not getting compensated other than the fact that they're in the middle of this lavish circus lifestyle. Back when they were living at the other house and towards the end, they'd made a couple of videos and one where Catherine's blaming everyone under the sun, saying that they're not going to play victim, but you know, this person screwed us and this person, you know, it's like every time I see that scene again, it just makes me want to throw up. But she's sitting there and she's saying, we didn't have our occupancy permit and we couldn't have gas and we didn't have heat and I was pregnant and I was bathing children in cold water and blah, blah, blah. And
let me explain something. When you don't have a certificate of occupancy, you don't have gas in your house. It's illegal. So we've never had gas. So just so you guys know, our winters are getting really cold in LA. We live in a glass house. Our winters, our first winter that we spent, I was pregnant with my son and I had 2 babies. We were freezing in our house. We were so freaking cold. There was no heat, no nothing.
It's like, okay, so the lawyer in me says, all right, basically then that's neglect because, and I'll put it up here, California, it says, what is a failure to provide care? Failure to provide care and child neglect are 2 terms for a situation wherein there's a pattern of failure to provide or take care of a child's basic need or not provide adequate supervision, which I have to say, these kids and the things that happen to them makes me wonder if their parents are too busy with the camera. Oh, by the way, this is Edith. Edith, come here. This is Edith. Hi, Edith. Say hi, Edith. Edith is a little runt. And Edith has a sister, Mary. And Edith is the runt of the litter. So anyway, so I looked back at, you know, when Catherine was screaming and moaning about, oh, we didn't have a certificate of occupancy. We couldn't legally live in our house. And when you don't have a certificate of occupancy, you don't have gas. And it's cold in the winter. And I was bathing my kids with cold water, blah, blah, blah. So I thought, you know, as a lawyer, I mean, really, that's neglect. And it says that, you know, in California, child neglect is illegal. Well, I think it's illegal everywhere. And it says the law breached by any parent who commits the willful omission of providing basic necessities to his or her minor child. Well, I would say that not providing heat and hot water to your child is an omission. And so, under the statute, I think qualifies in this case. So, if somebody had called child services on them, I wonder if they would have taken the kids away, you know, because they've admitted on video that they were depriving their children of these basic necessities. So, anyway, so the whole situation just really grossed me out. And I wanted to address it because that video of that kid with the bloody mouth just set me off and pushed me over the edge. And I said, you know, these people are so blatant that honest to God, the kid could be falling off a cliff. And I think Austin would be making sure he got the shot before he attempted to do anything to save the child, honest to God, because that's just the impression I get watching the way they make sure they get everything on film. You know, it's like me, I would have thrown the camera and run to the kid, you know, not them, you know, somebody, oh, here, take the camera so I can help the kid. Now make sure you now follow us in, make sure you get that close up of that bloody mouth. But anyway, so that's just my rant for today. That's our episode of, it's an elongated version for the Daily Docket. It's more like a regular video, but anyways, I wanted to share that with you. Oh, and I'm going to put up here, I get notifications, like I pay attention like to what they post usually nonsense on social media, like their Snapchat and Instagram and stuff. It's usually just like nonsense, and I, for the most part, just ignore it. But today, Catherine put up this really bizarre clip of a, I guess it's a poem or something, but just the whole, I mean, I'll put it up here. You can read it for yourself, but it's pretty weird. And it's like, you know, it makes me wonder where the hell her head is at. You know, it's like, I think too many crystals and too much God knows what. And just, you know, the tenor of some of these things are so off the wall. But anyways, tell me in the comments what you think. I'd like to know what you think about all of this. And so that's my rant for the day. Thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. I've got another video that I'm going to put up tomorrow that I'm almost done with. And those of you who looked at video about the true crime story, I'm going to be doing more of those. I actually have on location, I did on location filming for one story because it's not too far from where I live. And so I'm going to put that story, and it's a pretty interesting story. And there's like, I went to this library that has an archives, and they had like evidence from the, it's actually from the 19th century, but it's really a shocking story. They actually had all of the evidence, and they had all of the original trial documents and the notes from the attorneys and all kinds of stuff related to this case. And it just was so cool because I got to go and I sat there for like 3 or 4 hours going through these boxes of stuff, and it just was so cool. And I photographed some of it, and then I went on location to the scene of the crime because it's still there, and I did some filming. So I'll put that story together and I'll put that up. I hope more of you will take a look at the true crime stuff. Anytime I put up something about the McBrooms, a million people come and watch. You know, no, not a million. I wish a million. But if I put up other stories, you know, I get like a lukewarm reception, and it's kind of frustrating because I don't want to just be the McBroom Ace Family channel. I want to be covering all kinds of stuff. So, you know, I'd really appreciate it if you take a look at especially that new true crime video that I put up, because, you know, I do put a lot of work into them, and I would really like to diversify and bring you guys more content other than just crap about the McBrooms and their bananas existence. Anyways, let me know what you think. Thank you for tuning in. Please hit the thumbs up. Please subscribe if you haven't. 3/4 of you are not subscribed, and I would really appreciate it. Miss Edith, she wants to go to bed. Look at her. Look how cute she is. She's so cute. Thank you for sticking around to watch the story about Edith and Mary and their tragic story. Oh, she's drooling. Why are you drooling, little girl? Oh, you're drooling. She gets all excited. She starts drooling. It's really weird. A story that turned into a happy ending. And I'm so glad to have them because they are such good cats. So Edith and Mary, come here, Edith. Edith and Mary were 7 weeks old. I'm sorry, this story every time I tell it. So, anyways, for a while, I was working with these groups on Facebook that try to save cats that are in trouble. And New York City is really terrible in terms of the volume of pets that get surrendered to animal control. And it angers me because it's like people who have had their cats for years and years, and they either decide they don't want to take care of them in their old age, or they decide they're moving somewhere and they don't want them, they can't bring them with them. And so, there are cats that I've adopted there in their teens that people have had all their lives and they just dump them. Well, anyways, Edith and Mary, obviously, you can tell she's a young cat. And they were not in that situation. However, this was the situation. So Edith and Mary, their mama had, she was sickly. Her mammary glands were infected. And so, of course, her milk was infected. And she had a litter of kittens. And unfortunately, Edith and Mary's siblings all died. And the mama died. And so Edith and Mary were dumped at animal control on the Upper East Side of New York. And they were so skinny and sickly and bloated with worms in their stomachs, and they were going to put them to sleep. And so one of my contacts reached out to me and said, is there anything you can do? I've tried, they had tried everywhere to try to get these cats placed. And, usually with kittens, it's not that hard to get a rescue because they work with rescues to pull these, they call it pulling. They pull the cats from the shelter because literally in New York, they have a basically put to sleep list is a polite way I'm going to put it. Every single day, there are a number of cats on the list that's their last day if somebody doesn't take them. So my contact was frantic. She actually lives I don't know why, she lives in Switzerland and she helps these cats in New York. I don't know. I never really have asked her what the story is, but she is Swiss. She's not like she's from here and went over there. So anyways, so she reached out to me. She's like, please, please. She's like, do you know anybody? These cats, I've tried to find them a place. There's no place for them. They're going to be put to sleep today at 6 o'clock. And I was working. I actually had to go to court. I said, well, let me see how long court takes because I never know. This was back obviously before the pandemic. This was like almost 3 years ago because they're going to be 3 in May. So I said, well, I said, you're really, because she knows I have this weakness for these poor cats. And so I said, well, let me see how long court's going to take. And I will call you as soon as I'm done. And luckily, because sometimes I'm there like all day waiting and waiting. That's why the pandemic, as horrible as it's been, doing all this stuff on Zoom is like heaven. I'm so thrilled to be able to do all of my court hearings at home. I roll out of bed, I throw on a shirt and tie, and I can go to court. It's great. But anyways, so I was lucky. I think the person on the other side didn't show up or something. So I was out of there pretty quickly. So I called her up and I said, have you had any luck? Have you found me? She's like, no, no, no. And she's like, and she's not kidding. At 6 o'clock, that was going to be the end for these 2 little girls. So I got in my car and I drove to the Upper East Side. And it was, of course, by the time I got on the road, it was already after lunch and the traffic was horrible. And I sat in traffic, but I got there. I think I got there at like 4 o'clock. And she had called ahead and told them that I was coming. And they said, well, he better be here before 6. And so I got there about 4 o'clock. And they went into the back and they brought out a carrier with these 2 terrified, itty bitty little kittens. And they had not been weaned from their mother, so they were being bottle fed and stuff. Still, they were sort of like on the cusp of they could now eat on their own. So these 2 little kittens. And Edith, I'll put up a picture here. Edith is so fucking cute. Pardon my French, but in the carrier you can see Mary's the one laying down, and Edith is like propped up behind her on her shoulder with this wide-eyed look of terror, and she's like huddling behind her sister, and they're still very close. Mary's upstairs. I can't show you Mary right now. Mary's upstairs, and I'm embarrassed to say Mary is a little overweight, unlike her petite sister here. I don't know what the issue is. I brought her to the doctor, and I think what I'm gonna have to do is start hiding food from her, because I think she just eats and eats and eats, and I think part of it comes from the trauma that they went through. But anyway, so I got these two little kittens, and I was in my car for freaking 9 hours total. Unbelievable. It's like people think I'm insane, but I'll put her down. She gets really antsy. She's like always on the move, but she's the sweetest cat. When I'm working, she comes and she like plops herself down and she like lays on my arm while I'm working on the computer. So I brought them to my vet right away. I think first thing the next morning, I think I brought them to the vet because my vet's really good. He makes time for me almost always if I have something going on. And so I brought them in, and he examined them, and he gave me some anti-worming medicine and stuff. And he said, it's kind of 50-50 whether they're going to make it, and all of their siblings and their mama had died. So, I said, well, I'm going to do my best. I brought them home. Went to the store. I bought replacement milk for kittens because they were still, they had been taken away. Well, their mom had been taken away from them. So they never really nursed all the way. So I bought replacement milk for kittens. I bought supplements for the weight. I fed them with a syringe to make sure they were getting enough nutrition, and crossed my fingers, and they made it, clearly. And that's probably, I'm going to say, the second saddest story that I have. They all have happy endings. Oh, why I called them Monkey. Because when they were little, they were so small. And, I had, all my cats were adults, and I was so afraid that when I was gone all day long, what if one of the bigger cats, got annoyed by them or got jealous, because I didn't know how they were going to react when I first brought them home. So I had this 3-story cage that had like shelves that you could like climb and jump onto, and it had like toys hanging and stuff. But when I would go to work, I would put them in there because there's plenty of room for these 2 itty bitty little things. And I would put their food, their water, and they had a little litter box. But when I would come home from work, and I shut them in one of my guest rooms, when I would come home from work and I would open that door, the 2 of them would be clinging with all 4 feet and hands hanging from the bars, and they would be going ee, because they were so excited to see me and they wanted to get out of the cage. And so they reminded me of monkeys in the zoo, where they're making noise and squeaking. And so I just call them my monkeys. So I call her Edith, or I call her Monkey. But Edith and Mary, by the way, in case some of you don't realize this, Edith and Mary, and you've met my Siamese cat Sybil, those are the 3 daughters from Downton Abbey. So I've got Lady Sybil, Lady Edith, and Lady Mary. But anyway, so that's Edith and Mary's story. And like I said, every time I tell it, I relive it. And I just remember thinking, I can't let these poor little orphan cats, I can't let them, put them to sleep. So they're safe. They're loved. But anyway, thank you again for watching. I will see you in the next one.
Pretty please. Subscribe, like, and hit the bell. I get a treat for every new sub. Thank you.